Hi, everyone. I am Mary Beth Torvik. I'm ILTA's local experience manager, and I want to welcome everyone today to Unlock the Future of Endpoint Management. First, I want to thank our ILTA Dallas member liaisons, John Graves and Becky Wynn, for collaborating with Aiden to plan this event. Becky was not able to be with us today, but John and Becky worked to plan all the local experiences for Dallas in the Southeast region. I'd also like to express our appreciation to Aiden, today's sponsor, and to our panel of speakers and moderator who will be introduced a little later in the program. As we go through the session, please feel free to share your questions or comments in the chat. We'll make sure to address them during the discussion, and please mute your audio. And I'll turn it over to our member liaison, John Graves.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you get a lot out of this section on endpoint management and the advantages that we can see with technology. I want to introduce Alan Hickson, one of our guests today. He's the Director of Business Development at Aiden. He leads strategic growth and partnerships that brings Aiden's intelligent automation platform to enterprise IT teams. With over 30 years in the technology industry, and that's quite an accomplishment, including serving as CEO of several successful startups and turnarounds, Alan has a proven track record of transforming complex IT challenges into scalable, high-value solutions. He's passionate about helping organizations modernize endpoint management, which we're going to learn about today, through automation, compliance, and the ability to recover rapidly from a ransomware attack breach. So welcome, Alan. Let's start by learning about Aiden and the services it provides to law firms.
Thank you, John. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm just going to give you 2-3 minutes high-level overview of Aiden's solution. So at a very high level, what we're addressing here, the challenges are complexity, risk, and scarce resources. So in terms of complexity, often we hear law firms have got a lot of tools that they're trying to work with, scripts that they're trying to create, manual tasks. In terms of risk, any delays in patching can increase risk and compliance issues. And then typically we see very stretched IT teams supporting attorneys and staff. So at a high level, they're the areas that a solution addresses. So what is the solution? So it's Windows, computers, and servers focused. We start with a desired state policy. That policy is plain English, it's rules-based, and defines the firm's standards for every computer and server that we're supporting. And we have something we call Aiden Bot. Aiden Bot automates the builds of new computers, automates updates, patching, and compliance, so vulnerability remediation. The dashboard we call Aiden Vision. That gives you audit-ready reports for IT and InfoSec, and obviously for auditors. And then Aiden Rescue, which is a very unique offering in the industry. This enables quick and secure rebuilds after a ransomware breach, which obviously we hope no one will need, but it is there for your peace of mind. So how does the solution work? So I mentioned desired state configuration. We document how you want every computer and server to look. We have a people part of the service where we package the OS and the applications for you. And that includes the complex legal apps like iManage, Litera, and NetDocuments, Big Hand. We have a large library of applications. There's chances are we already have your apps in our library. Automation kicks in for the builds. It works with any deployment tool, whether you've got SCCM, Intune, or a third-party tool. If you're moving from SCCM to Intune, we can make that a very simple process. And if you've already looked at Intune or are using it, you'll know that there are some limitations, and we enhance Intune and Autopilot to make up for those limitations and add even additional value to it. In terms of productivity, your users will see fewer help desk tickets, fewer reboots, no forced application closures. You'll get this really comprehensive view of how compliant you are at any point in time, full audit trail by endpoint, for every change to every endpoint, and you'll get this view that says, next time you run Aiden Bot, what is it going to fix for me? And finally, the ransomware recovery capability, Aiden Rescue. We can do a complete wipe to bare metal and rebuild back to your desired state configuration, whether those devices are on the network or remote. So again, if you're familiar with autopilot, you know you can't do that with fresh start because you need the operating system to be in place. We get around that. And for our customers, it means that ransomware is no longer a thing for them. So net, we typically see that the solution is more than offset by the resources that it frees up, typically 150, 250% of the cost of our solution, sometimes a lot more than that. You'll see fewer interruptions to your users, maximize billable hours, and we consistently see a 95% plus reduction in vulnerabilities and risk reduction. So you'll have consistent, compliant, and secure Windows computers and servers. That's Aiden's solution at a very high level.
Thanks, Alan. I'm also honored to introduce Josh Aaron. He's the Chief Executive Officer for Aiden, and he's by background. I hear that you're quite the Chief Technology Officer in some of your background, so you can share some of that as well. But we're really excited to have Josh with us. He's going to act as your moderator today and be asking some questions. But I do want to reiterate, this is a conversation, y'all. This is not the stars talking and we want you to sit and listen. If you have a question, please post the question either in chat or at the end. We're going to give you a moment at the very end of the program to bring up any other questions you might have left over. So we do want to encourage you to go ahead and ask your questions in chat or at the end of the presentation. Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself and do me a favor and introduce our guest for today's session.
Will do. Thank you, John, and happy to be here. Paul Wilson was going to be with us, but he had a bit of a family emergency, so you all get me today. Sorry about that. But it's very nice to be here, and a little bit of my background. I was a customer of Aiden, just to let people know. I was a customer at a private equity firm for a couple of years, and then I left in November of 2019, joined the company in 2020, and so I have had some customer experience and have sat in the shoes of our customers before. First, I'd like to introduce Andrew from Hunt & Andrews Kurth. Andrew DeBrato is the Chief Information Security Officer at Hutton. Andrew runs global IT and security for a 20-office international firm, and he brings a rare mix of operations and cyber. He's a CISSP with a strong security background and a big focus on resilience and user experience. Also, Andrew's an Aiden customer for quite a while and a great design partner. Andrew, great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Being here today. And second, but certainly not last, Scott Rolfe, CIO at Tucker Ellis. Scott's a 30-year plus tech leader. He's actually made IT feel business first at his organization and his firm, not ticket first. He's led their move to a more automated and secure endpoint management, and he's very pragmatic about what law firms will and won't adopt. He's also an Aiden customer, so he's lived this. And Scott, we appreciate you being here and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And lastly, I'd like to thank our hosts here at ILTA. We really appreciate it. Maribeth and Laura and John, thank you so much for having us today and allowing us to sponsor this webinar. I'm going to dive right in with some questions for our panel. And as John said at the beginning, please feel free to ask questions. You can post them to us. Maribeth or someone will get them to me and we'll make sure that we try and get all your questions answered as we go through. But I'm going to start with our topic today is about modernizing endpoint management. And I realize not everybody who's tuned in may even know what we mean when we say endpoint management. So Andrew, I'm going to go to you first. Maybe each of you could give us a little description of how you define endpoint management in your roles and in your organizations, in your firms.
Sure. So we look at it from the perspective of the life cycle of the device you're working on, traditionally your laptop or your desktop. And that layers from installing ongoing patches, drivers, applications, and then really trying to drive to a consistent desired state of that device so that you are really working on a hardened device that is within the configuration boundaries or parameters that you define within your organization. That's my definition. Scott, if you have a different opinion of that.
No, actually, I think you're right on with that definition. The only thing I would add is it's holistic. It's not just patching. It's about how you build the workstation, deploy software, patch, all kinds of things, the operating system, the third-party applications, Microsoft applications, the OEM hardware and driveware stuff. All that stuff is part of endpoint management. So it's if you look at it holistically, there's a lot of pieces and there's a lot of moving parts, and it's hard to get right if you're using a bunch of different tools.
Definitely in my experience over my 30 years in IT, it was very hard to get right, every organization I was ever part of. Scott, let's go back to you on this. Windows Endpoint Management used to be painfully manual. I think we all came from the days when it was really painfully manual. It's gotten better over the years, but even with tools like imaging and things that are out there to try to help make things easier, and for those that don't know, imaging is cloning a computer from like taking a snapshot of one computer and moving it to another.
Some of us
Shipping
older guys may
laptops
remember.
around. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Say some of us older guys may remember Ghost.
Yes, Ghost, right.
Hmm.
PDQ deploy, I think, right? Um, Shipping laptops around, one-off packaging. Scott, what actually changed at Tucker Ellis that pushed you toward a more automated model?
So to be fair, we were pretty automated before. We just had a collection of tools. We didn't have a single tool that could do all this for us. But what really pushed us to move to a new technology is really the work from home stuff that hit during COVID. It made everything much more complicated, including patching. So, we're trying to stay within our client guidelines as far as how quickly you need to patch and have machines up to date after different releases and patches come out. And our new software and methods make that much more easy. It takes the pain away and really takes away a lot of the risk. We wanted a tool that had less reliance on our network, internal network, so we could work from anywhere. And have a new solution that can pull from a local server as well as the internet was a huge boon for us. That was a great step forward.
Andrew, is it the same trigger for Hunton, or was it more about operating global model and scalability? What were the things that led you to this?
Yeah, no, to a high degree, it's very similar, and it's probably a very similar story we see across law firms. I've been with Hunton now. I'm going on I think my 13th year, and I was one of the initial architects of our patching world, if you want to call it that, or our monthly updates. So we would run a major monthly update, a minor monthly update, and those would sort of cycle through the months. And we did it all with task sequences, which were very manually intensive. We were layering scripts and reboots and dependencies inside of those task sequences. And in the early days of this, we would kick those off on a Wednesday evening, and a two-team group or two-person team would stay online throughout the night, babysitting the deployment of those task sequences. And it was very manually intensive. As we have progressed, and this is going back to when I started with the firm in roughly 2013, as we've progressed, we need to be able to reach out to those users' devices wherever they are in the world. The days of attorneys coming in and logging into a desktop are long gone. We don't even buy desktops anymore. We're laptops only. So our attorneys are very transient. They're all over the place, and we need to be able to reach out and deploy critical patches, new drivers, or completely image machines anywhere in the world at any given time.
And I know, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this in the past. Security is always a big focus for you. What would you say were some of the biggest security or hygiene gaps you were seeing? Was it old apps, missed patches, or just a lack of visibility? Or, what were the things that, really were problematic before?
Well, for us, it was consistency. Consistency of deploying patches and having the comfort that our endpoints were hardened. Being an SCCM customer, we like to commonly say that the SCCM client had a glass jaw, and it would just break very easily. So we would spend a lot of operational hours remediating broken clients. And sometimes you don't realize that client's broken until long after your patch deployment, which leaves those machines in an unprotected state, which disrupts your users because now you have to get on their machine to fix their client, or you're clearing SCCM cache. So when we were looking at modernizing this, we wanted to reduce the operational impact, increase our reach, being able to get to these machines and deploy not only Windows patches but deploy application updates, application patches, offload our packaging, and really just be able to give our people a more consistent desktop so we could help drive our ultimate goal, which is having compliant machines. Within our world, we use a known device and compliant device, which within our Microsoft conditional access policies, as a key driver to allowing you to get to services within our network.
Great. And Scott, anything to add from your firm side, especially where InfoSec wants it yesterday and IT is still testing and all those kinds of things? Like,
Yeah, as we discussed, one of our biggest issues was patching because our old tools used to push updates rather than pull them from the client. And that made it very difficult when they were not on the network. So our old system was reliable in that it worked, but it required a heck of a lot more attention and a lot of extra work. So the old process actually would patch during the week because we had better success like that. And it would give the user an 8-hour window to count down for a time to reboot. And people honestly hated that. They didn't like it at all. But because of the different tool sets we were using, we couldn't guarantee that we wouldn't interrupt their work or shut them down if they're, say, in trial or something. So we were really worried about that. And we changed that so that now we boot on Saturday, we patch it Saturday on 1 a.m. and we reboot at 4 a.m. And it keeps everybody up and running, and it's just out of the way now where we didn't have to worry about it. From a security standpoint, the process is quicker to get to compliance because things are built and patched at the same time with one tool. So we used to have to build the machine with like WSUS and then run the patches against it. So that was always kind of painful. Or you'd have to run, build the machine with WSUS, apply the security with whatever, apply the packages with whatever software delivery mechanism you had, and then patch on top of that. So it was almost 3 times the work to try and get some of this stuff done. And in the end, when you go to look at success, you'd have to look at each tool's logs and you'd really have to believe them and say, yep, I installed, we're good to go. And that wasn't really great for us because they tend to not lie, but miss stuff. And with Aiden, it reevaluates each time it runs, which is a huge boon, so that we know that the data we can see in the portal is accurate.
very good. And Scott, I mean, one of the big challenges these days, the promise of modern endpoint managers is something bad happens, ransomware, CrowdStrike, not to speak of the dead, when things happened, but bad updates, lost devices, somebody leaves one on an airplane when they're traveling. You hope you can rebuild and get them to a known good computer that works for them well in a very short period of time, maybe a day, not a week, right? Can you walk us through a real scenario where you've seen problems like that or that mattered and how you've been able to use automation to solve it?
The biggest thing is those last minute requests on Friday at 5 o'clock. That I need something for Sunday, or I need something for Monday, or I'm going to be in court, but it's going to be in Louisiana and I leave tomorrow. Those kinds of things used to be super frustrating because it took so long to build machines. But now with the automation we have in place, it's much simpler. So if we get a request to the time we actually hand the laptop off is sometimes as little as 2.5 hours. It depends on what software has to be loaded. If it's a pretty basic system, it comes even quicker than that. But of course, our users require a lot of extra pieces depending on what they're doing. So if they need, say, OnQ or some trial deposition piece of software, we have to load those as well. So that adds a little bit to the end.
What was it like before automation?
So we used to keep laptops on the side that were built and ready to go, and we would try and patch them every couple of weeks. So if somebody had something that they needed, we could pull one off the shelf, just run the patches and configure it and go. But that required extra work because you never knew when they were coming over. So if if it's Microsoft, you wait a month, you're out of date, that's going to take an hour to patch itself in some situations. So we wanted to really compress that time frame, and Aiden helped us do that.
Thanks. Andrew, I'd love to hear from you a little bit, and Scott, you as well. How do you guys frame this stuff to senior leadership? Like when you're talking to firm leadership about, obviously anytime you change the process, right? It's people get nervous, right? Everyone's always afraid of breaking something. When you bring in new technology, any kind of new technology or modernization, with this kind of endpoint modernization, modern management, how are you framing it to your leadership?
Well, from day one, when we were looking at the problem in our organization, I was looking at it from a compliance and security standpoint. And really the message to leadership, all they want to hear is that we're secure and we're secure quickly. Other than that, my conversations are mostly with our compliance team and explaining to them what we're doing so they can then turn around and explain it to our clients who are auditing us. We at Hunton, we go through anywhere from 150 to 200 audits a year from our large clients. We have some large financial institutions and healthcare institutions, and they have some very strict guidelines within their outside counsel guidelines about how quickly we need to be patched, how quickly we need to get to that desired state, about running out of date or out of support software. So the question is really, the conversation is really with that compliance team to explain to them why this is a better mousetrap and how we can get to desired state quickly. As Scott mentioned, sometimes you're pulling a laptop out of a drawer that's a loaner. That in the past, we with the way we ran task sequences and because they were layering in the applications, Adobe, Microsoft updates, all of those things. It was an arduous process to get a machine to desired state. Now with these modern tools, really you take it out of the drawer, you turn it on, and you're good to go.
And Scott, thank you, Andrew. Any
So
thoughts on how your leadership consumes this when you try to bring them a fresh idea?
thankfully, we have a pretty thin leadership group in that I'm near the top, so I get to make all the technology decisions. So for me, it's really more of a budgetary issue. How much are we spending on all these tools? How much time and resource are we spending on it? And it really dropped the head count that I was expecting to need to add to try and keep up as we added offices. We've added 4 offices in the last 24 months, and it's a lot to keep up with. So this helped us keep the head count down for sure. And when you show it off, I mean, there's no managing partner I would want to show the guts of WSUS and Ivanti and all the old tools we used to use because it's way too complicated. But to be able to sit at their desk and say, hey, go to a command prompt and type this and have the Aiden window pop up and you can see all the software that's there in the firm. It's a bit of a dream to try and sell it to them because it looks Apple. It looks out of the box, easy to use. People understand it without having to know anything about scripts or software deployment or staging. So it really simplifies the sell process to upper management.
That's great to hear. How have you felt it's been from the user community, from the attorneys and the associates and everybody? Computer issues hit attorney productivity really quickly when they happen, right? And since you tightened up endpoint management, what dropped? Tickets, reimages, people complaining my laptop. So like what kinds of things are you not hearing or were hearing, and what's changed in the digital experience for the employees?
So the ticket count I haven't actually run numbers on yet. We also just deployed some major pieces of software, and with the office openings, those ticket numbers are still pretty high. So it's hard to really tell because they're artificially influenced by other factors. But what I can tell you is no news is good news. I don't hear messages from attorneys about, oh, I had a reboot in the middle of a brief I spent 6 hours on just so I could apply patches. I don't hear that anymore at all. I very rarely hear of a PC that's out of sync and doesn't have the latest and greatest stuff when I'm looking through the ticket system, which used to be a common fix. Oh, they didn't get the latest patch, or the patch didn't apply because they had the document open or something like that. I don't hear about those problems anymore. So to me, it's a law firm. You don't get credit for anything, but you don't hear anything. You start jumping up and down because things must be working.
That's great. I always feel like I joined the Aiden team because when I was a customer, I saw very similar to what you just said. It was a private equity firm, not a law firm, but certainly partners would complain all the time when I first got there about different things, and the noise just went away. And the biggest thing that I noticed was what I used to call go backs. The team would hand out machines to people, and I'd get a call to my office. We just hired 27 associates, and 3 of them, the day they got here, their computers, they needed more things. It took them a week to get productive. and we'd have to send people out to go back and fix it, and the go backs just seemed to go away, which got me really excited about the future of modernization. And that was 7 years ago.
Sure.
Come a long way. Andrew, what are the kinds of things you hear with automation in place now at your firm?
Well,
Or
similar
don't
to
hear?
similar to what Scott laid out. What our attorneys don't want is disruption. Um, as much as someone in the outside world may think this is kind of a 9 to 5 profession, it's really a 24/7 profession. And then when you top on that, offices around the world, it's just a never ending array of tickets and problems and issues you're dealing with. And the last thing attorneys want is to get a reboot prompt at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they're trying to get something filed. So this, for us, has really driven down the need for touch points. And I touched on this earlier. The operational overhead that we had with our previous tool, that was a lot of operational time for IT, but that also translated to disruptions for the users when we had to reach out and fix their problems. And with modern tools, we don't have problems to fix like we did before. So it's less time away. It's less time disrupting our users, which means it's less time for our staff and attorneys to be off their laptops and off their devices. But again, I'm going to go back to sort of my overarching reasoning for all of this. For me, it's all about the security aspect and getting to that desired state quickly. And if I can do that without disrupting my users with little friction, that it's a win-win.
Well, you both have talked about quite a bit if that are valuable wins. If you had to quantify the impact succinctly for leadership or for someone who wanted to ask this question, where are you seeing the biggest ROI? Is it security posture, operational efficiency, user satisfaction, or something else we haven't even talked about yet?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Security posture and operational efficiency, I think, are the two biggest wins that we've had with the product. There's been other numerous wins as far as frustration in IT because it's a much easier tool to use. But we've got a much more consistent fleet. We spend less time keeping it up to date. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, I really just would be repeating what Scott just said. For me, this has always been about getting to that desired state as quickly as possible. One of the biggest efficiencies that I've noticed is, when that patch comes out for that 0 day, it becomes less of a fire drill than it ever was before. Now it's as easy as, clicking a few buttons, and that we have confidence that that patch or that update is deployed globally, and we can see it in real time in the consoles as it's happening. That confidence goes a long way, and it solves a lot of headaches. It takes a lot of late nights off of your IT team's shoulders.
So that's great. And with all that extra time that hopefully we've freed up with some of the automation, what are some things looking forward in innovation? Like looking ahead, Scott, maybe you first, what's on your roadmap? Intune, SCCM integration, more automation, more telemetry driven stuff. Like what kinds of things do you want to see? What are you thinking about, and what do you feel is on the roadmap in the next couple of years?
So some of this doesn't directly touch endpoint management. It's things in general. But one, I'm now sold on hyperautomation, and I can't wait until we get more hyperautomation capabilities out of things like Copilot, where we can combine things with, say, Power Automate. The hyper automation that we have now with our current AIDN system is fantastic. So I'm sold. I want to see that in other areas. Another area we're going to spend some time on is intelligent document processing. You may have heard it called IDP. It's basically using natural language processing along with optical character recognition and robotic process automation and a little AI kind of baked in to auto-classify data and then agentically lock it down as it comes into business. It's a huge ask, but it's something I've been trying to do for the last 23 years I've spent in law firms. I've always wanted to be able to do this so that when an attorney comes in and they copy something to the network, great, tag it as PII, tag it as PHI, lock it down, and make sure that we're meeting the commitments that we have without having to like pre-process it through somebody on my team that looks through it. It's like, well, it has PII, we need to be careful with this, or well, this client requires that. that kind of stuff is kind of going to go away. And because I'm not going to be worried about the endpoints as much, I'm hoping to retrain my staff in these kinds of things that are more futuristic. And then on the packaging side, or on the endpoint management side, I've been very impressed with what Microsoft's been doing with Winget. So I'm really hoping that Aiden starts to work more with that, because I think that can help us specifically to how we deal with things like the Microsoft Store and those apps, because they all update through Winget much more easily than they did in the old ways that we had to update them before. So I'm looking forward to see what's going to come there.
Yeah, you'll be pleased to hear we just had a product roadmap meeting, and Intune configuration and integration with things like Winget is on our roadmap for Q2 next year.
Yeah, thankfully
A
we're
lot of
already
that
in tune integrated with Aiden,
Yeah.
and that was a big help for us, because before we were using a bunch of different tools, and now it's all through Microsoft.
There's a lot more control coming.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear it.
Andrew, what about you? Same question. Now that you've got some cycles back, hopefully, and what are some of the things on your roadmap, and both in endpoint management, but outside endpoint management? What are things that
Yeah.
you hope to be able to achieve over the next year or two with the
Well, I won't go down the AI rabbit hole, but obviously, there are more AI legal focused apps than I can shake a stick at. And every other day I get a call from somebody saying, "Hey, have you heard of this one?" And it's just like rubbernecking, trying to keep up with everything that's going on in that space. We've just recently completed our Windows 11 deployment. We layered with that Windows Hello for Business. We've suppressed your traditional Control Alt Delete. You can't even use it on our machines. And we've gone to private access using the Netscope private access product. So our next stage there is to go like true passwordless and to just get rid of the passwords altogether. We're working right now with compliance to adopt the current NIST standards of, hey, you don't change your password unless you're suspected of a breach. So we can get people out of the business of dealing with passwords and try to reduce as much friction as possible for our staff and attorneys. We're in the late stages of
Andrew, for
our.
people that may not know what NIST is, because I don't know who's on the audience here,
Sorry.
maybe explain that a little bit.
So the National Institute of Security Standards Technology or
Yeah.
something like that. But they are effectively like a governing board who puts out a whole bunch of standards that a lot of us follow as our guidelines around what is best practice in our cybersecurity postures. And they had come out in 2024, I believe it was, and said, yeah, all those things we were doing with our passwords over all these years were actually making us less safe. So let's just stop doing all of that, and let's standardize on authenticator apps, and let's go to passwordless, and let's just make everybody's lives easier. So we're trying to adopt that standard. I know other firms have successfully adopted that, and I'm trying to ride on their coattails here. We had a plan in place a couple years back to be out of the data center within 5 years and to completely be cloud centric. Again, this is kind of akin to what we're talking about with the modernization of the endpoint management, which is getting rid of that low value work. So our staff can focus on high value projects. So we've moved our document management system to the cloud. We were one of the first AmLaw firms to move Aderant to the cloud. Our email's been in the cloud for some time. Really leaves me with our business intake and conflict system. And then on a endpoint management side of the house, for us, it's really more about getting deeper entrenched in that known device security posture. We're reworking all our conditional access policies right now, and just taking a fresh look at them now that Windows 10 and some of that legacy way of thinking is out of the way. And then to just really drive down our time to desired state as much as possible. Over the last 3 or 4 months, we've started to shrink that window of how long we do QC, how long we go to pilot, because we're getting more pressure to be at desired state quicker. But we're also seeing a lot less, kicks, stub toes, if you will, where we have these meetings where we go over the patches and everyone says, yeah, no, just deploy them. Yeah, no, just deploy them. So we're just getting to the state now where we need to, I think, just shrink that quality control window even more so we can just get to that desired state quicker.
it kind of goes in with my next question for both of you guys, which is knowing what you know now after going on this journey with us for the last year or two. If you had to do it all again, what might you start earlier, or what would you encourage other firms that are peer firms to think about? Inventorying, app rationalization, something in the process. What are the things that come to mind that you all went through in the journey to get to where you are now with modernization that you might encourage others to start?
For me, it starts at asset management. I need to do some modernization there and clean up some protocols that we have that are way too manual right now and make more of that automatic. So I think if I had done that earlier, that would have reaped the benefits later on. That it's still a pain in the butt and it's manual and it takes a lot of time. So having the endpoint management piece done is focused areas on other areas where we're deficient and we need to move forward in things. The second thing I probably would have done is when I rolled out our new endpoint management tool, as well as our endpoint detection tool set, I would have looked closer at some of the zero trust stuff, as Andrew was alluding to, as a known device security posture. I think there are things that we could have done that may have made a bit of a difference in being able to more rapidly adapt to that. We kind of hindered ourselves because we're like, well, we don't know if this is going to work, but it's the safe route because we know we can do this, that, or the other. And I think we should have taken a little more risk early on with some of these projects because it would have reaped a lot more benefit. You're going to get the same benefit now. It's just going to take a little bit longer.
Interesting. And Andrew, when you think about it going backwards, and what are things you might have started earlier or things you would have
Well,
changed about the journey?
yeah, no, for me, I think it's just listening earlier. And I say that from the perspective of endpoint management, patching, whatever, however you want to sort of frame this. It's probably not considered the sexiest part of IT, right? So sometimes it's just like, yeah, that's plumbing and it's just there and it's doing its thing. And, but we've gone from Ghost to WSUS to SCCM to, these more modern tools where, if you take that time early on to listen and understand, it took me a while to really understand, what AIDN is and what it does. And once you sort of take the time to listen and understand it, you then realize, oh, wow, this is actually going to save me a lot of time, which now frees our people up to do a lot more. So instead of just saying, that's just push it off to the corner, leave it in the closet, take the time to take a look and really think outside the box of what the value proposition of this is for your organization across the board, because there is a value there.
Thank you. And Maribeth, do you have any, or John, do you have any questions in from the audience that I'm just noticing we have about 10, 15 minutes left, right? I just want to make sure we have time for Q&A if we.
There's no questions in the chat. I don't know if anyone in the room with John, if anyone has questions there, would like to speak up.
I'm getting a lot of shaking heads here.
Okay, well, I'll give you my bonus overflow questions, I call them.
Sure.
All right, bonus question number one, and either one of you feel free to take it. AI and agentic, and I know you don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but come on, let's face it, we're all being asked about AI right now, all the time. Where do you see AI or agentic automation actually helping endpoint management in the law firm, or anything else that you'd like to talk about, versus just being another buzzword? In the near future, right? In the next 6 to 18 months, right? Where is it really going to make an impact?
So we just signed on with a rather large AI legal supplier. So I think for us, the initial piece is going to be helping the attorneys with common workflows, being able to automate some of the things that they do at the transactional level. I think that's probably the first place that we will see that kind of effort. The second place is in our endpoint detection tool set. There's some AI built into that now, so we're going to be able to do some things we've never done before to look for viruses and malware and reporting and that kind of stuff on the secure state of our organization. When it comes to endpoint management, I think it goes back to some of the stuff that we already talked about with the Winget stuff and the hyper automation with Copilot. It would be great if I could use Copilot to query, say, AIDN Vision and say, what are the 3 machines that have this CVE problem? I know there's 3 out there because I can see it in the report. I want to know who it is, what machine it is, and where it's at, that kind of stuff, which I think would be in the logs that you could probably pull up. So those kinds of things to get more value out of that piece would be huge for us if we could do that. So I have my fingers crossed for you.
It's great. We are building something that's coming out very soon. Can't announce it just yet, but obviously leveraging agentic and AI methods to answer exactly those kinds of questions. But as you mentioned it, Scott, I don't think that there was a plan to integrate it with Copilot.
Yeah.
Like it's our own Copilot kind of thing for Aiden, right? Where you can ask it those questions. I wonder if there's an opportunity to do that. We'll go explore that. So thank you for that thought. That's great.
Sure. Yeah, just took up a little MCP, right? It's all
Yeah.
standardized stuff these days.
Andrew, what's going on in your AI world that you're willing to share or talk about?
Sure.
Without going too far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But
well,
what's
again,
near term and what's right?
splitting this into two conversations from the firm perspective. Our leadership is I'd say all in. It's really just getting the engagement from the staff and attorneys to take time to learn. It is a learning curve, and we are about to sign an enterprise agreement. We have a fair number of licenses for one of the 3 main platforms that everybody talks about, and we're about to sign an enterprise agreement to make it available for everyone. We have our own internal chat GPT-like tool that we call Huntin AI, which is internal to our data center. We also have, or it's really running inside of Microsoft Azure. We have a handful of point solutions individually or personally. As I'm seeing these co-pilots pop up inside of some of the tools I use, one of the most beneficial for me has been inside of our SIM, where before I need to know this cryptic language to try to get information out of the SIM. And now with just natural language querying, I can say, show me all the logins for Josh Aiden over the last 30 days, XYZ, ABC, and it'll bring me back the information instead of me having to break apart JSON and, this equals that and like that, and it's like, I got 70 other things to do. I can't become a linguist at the same time here for this SIM. For endpoint management, I would agree. Oh, I want to track back for 1 second. I don't know. This ILTA, we're a legal world here. One of the LexisNexis CEOs was just recently interviewed. This has been kind of traveling around my circles where they were talking about the agents. And he was recently interviewed on Decoder by a gentleman named Neely Patel. And they were talking about, well, this agent's just going to be talking to that agent and sending this email to that agent and that email to that agent. And at what point is the human in that transaction, right? And we're not at a stage yet where any of us are comfortable without having the human in the loop and the human ultimately making that final decision, right or wrong, whatever that decision may be. From an endpoint management, I agree with Scott. Being able to go into the tools and just extrapolate data quickly. Show me my efficacy. Show me how many machines are not in desired state. Show me all the machines that have Microsoft Power Toys on it, and maybe show me all the machines that have Power Toys that are out of date or have been updated in the last. But being able to bring that information back at a moment's notice is really, really beneficial.
You guys are going to love the next version of Aiden Vision.
Right.
Good at that. I get to see all the preview stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really great. I mean, I guess you've both talked quite a bit about how all of this automation, AI tools, everything else is freeing up talent and resources.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I think we're all getting challenged in almost every facet of every industry, right? To be more lean, to be capital efficient with labor. You both run lean teams already. How is automating packaging and updates change the kind of people you think about hiring? More engineering, less hands-on desktop, kind of where are you thinking about taking your teams? And maybe Scott, go to you first. What are the skills that you're upskilling for, and what are the things that you maybe think are going to be more automated in the future?
So I think the biggest role in the organization that's going to change is desktop engineering. Not just because we're all probably going to be in the cloud eventually with a Microsoft desktop, but because the nature of hardware being hard to support over time has been interesting. And now we've got AI built into every endpoint. You go to buy something from Lenovo these days, they want to sell you the AI version of that. Trying to understand how you can leverage that for good rather than just yet another way to have to pay Lenovo for something, and how that's going to work and how that's going to navigate in the different tool set that we have is a different skill set than somebody's that's out there writing Avanti scripts or that's writing PowerShell. It's more of an analyst role, taking a look at the use of technology rather than the implementation of that technology. It's a slightly different focus. So for me, that's the kind of thinking that I want to put in the new hires. People that have that fire in their belly to be an analyst and really understand how things work.
Andrew, same question to you.
Yeah, I was having this conversation recently, and I believe you said Scott's been in this game for 30 years, and I think I'm going on around 26, 27 now. And I was telling this person, the days of I go back to the days of Novell and Windows NT, and the days of a blue screen that was the NT loader DLL, and you need to be able to figure out how to boot this thing. Those days are just long gone, right? We don't do that anymore, right? Today it's all about the integrations and API connectivity, and you need to understand REST API, and you got to get into Postman. And as our team has been reshaping over the years, my two most recent hires were around data services and our integration and automation teams. That's where we're seeing really the sweep of work going, and that's where we're trying to upskill people into those parts of the organization, because those parts of the organization are the ones that are handling all of our BI. That's part of the organization that's handling all of our AI development, and that's really where we're seeing much more need and focus. As Scott said, I think the role of the desktop technician, changes as these tools get simpler. It becomes a lot of interaction work where you're working with your attorneys to assist them with getting ready for court, assist them with getting out the door, the work that they need to get out, almost a business analyst type of role.
That's great. I mean, I couldn't agree more with both of you about the analytics skills and the data and integration side of things. I think just how we're extracting information from the systems we already have and presenting it is key, and making it easily digestible and succinct for people that want
So
to.
Josh, I have a question from Dallas.
Great.
And this is really posed to both of you, but when you see like you need more analytics out of the people that you're bringing in to your firms, are you finding that you're more likely to have to hire from without to find the skill set that you're looking for? Or do you also have plans for training inside of your firms for existing people as well? And I'd like for you all to kind of speak to that a little bit as well.
Sure, I'll jump in this one first. It's the all universal answer. Well, it depends. It depends what the role is, and we have a few people in the team that we have moved through our organization. Actually, we've done I think a really solid job of promoting from within our firm, where we have quite a few people that are in our engineering ranks these days that started on our service desk. The two most recent hires we brought in were from the outside because the specific skill set we needed, we didn't feel like the time allotted to upskill to the level that we would need was just possible. But at the same time, I have someone who was on our service desk, used to be a technician, and has now been assigned to our security operations team, and we're upskilling them and training them up to do our SecOps work. And so we take it from both angles, and sometimes it just depends on the resource, but sometimes time just doesn't allow for you to, care and feed as much as you would like to bring someone to the level that you would need them right now. Scott?
So, I've changed the way I hire people. I don't really hire people because they were at a law firm and because they had specific experience with the technology maybe that we're struggling with. I tend to hire people these days that can and want to learn and have the capability and the potential to grow. Even when I'm hiring help desk persons, I'm looking down the pike 5 years. Can I grow this person into an analyst? Can I grow them into an engineer? Can I grow them into a position where they're going to do more than just straight help desk work? And I think about that at every level when we make a hire. I think it's much more important who they are than what they know. Certainly, experience helps, but I would look more for generalized experience in IT. What kinds of things have you done? I want to know what's their favorite project. What's the project that they struggled with the most? To me, those are much more telling than how many years of Splunk do you have, or how many law firms have you been at that used iManage? If people are smart, you can teach them anything rapidly. You can't teach people smart. They have to be smart. They have to be inquisitive. They have to be invested. So that's what I look at when I'm trying to hire new people.
Yeah, if I can tail back into this. I mean, attitude and aptitude are the first thing we look for. And then from there, it's, do you have the skill set we're looking for? We have a lot of great attitude and aptitude, but sometimes it's just a necessity to go outside because of a certain need.
I mean, this has been great. If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure a number of your peers are either joining us right now on the webinar, or they're going to watch this pre-recorded, right, or something later. If you had to give them some advice, another law firm CIO called you today and said, "We're still doing this the old way, and you guys seem to be ahead. What's the first thing you tell them to focus on or fix?" And Scott, let's go to you first.
So I'm assuming you're talking about endpoint management. What do you fix first? And I would probably tell them the piece that I didn't focus on initially, which was asset control. Because if you can get that right, that makes things easier later because you can build it into the processes. We're having to go back and change some things now to really put the asset management piece back in. We were more concerned about, we have to get on Windows 11. We have to change our tool set. We need to do it right now. What tools are we going to use and how do we get started? So we were really jumping in the deeper end of the pool there. We didn't have the luxury of really thinking through every business impact and every possibility of where that specific project could help. We had some tools that we were coming to the end and we didn't want to rebuy them. And that lights your fire a little bit to get some things done. So you have to go a little bit faster. So I would definitely say, if you can, handle the asset piece. Make sure you know where everything's at, that you've got your life cycle, as Andrew mentioned, from birth to death in your organization. Understand what every piece is and that it's all documented and that kind of stuff all the way through. Almost have a forensic log of where that machine was, who it was owned by, if you had to pass it between people, that kind of stuff. We did a lot of that manually. We have a lot of that information, but you can't query it because it's in different systems. So I would have tried to solve that problem along with the endpoint problem because it's control of the endpoints. That's one piece of the endpoint that you don't get offered when you do these other things. So that would probably be my big tool, is to really leverage asset management to make the projects go easier.
Great advice. And Andrew, same question. What kind of advice do you want to give your peers?
Don't sweep endpoint management under the rug. It's not just a part of the plumbing. It can be a value add, and it can free up your resources, time, and it can make your end users' lives a little bit easier. And I look at this through the lens of hardening the endpoint, and if this makes me 1% safer, then I have to consider it.
This has been really fantastic. Appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to give a quick wrap up, and I'm just going to mention a few things and go over some things that we heard from you guys today. Andrew, you talked about consistency. Getting to consistency, or what we call desired state, is such a big thing, and it makes such a big difference. Automation can help bring that and get things and save a lot of time and hours in the process. Reduced operational impact, operational load, right, on people having to do this work. I think is very important, what you talked about. Scott, you talked a lot about being quicker to get to compliance with one system, or kind of just simplifying the tool stack, right? The tool stack, and getting down to one system of truth or system of record on endpoint management can be very helpful, whether it's with Aiden or some other tool, but eliminating a lot of the pieces and consolidating with automation. Andrew, you talked about how compliance is where you kind of talk to all the time, and it's so important as the firms are dragged in for more and more due diligence when you're interfacing with customers that want to know how you're doing things, how are you controlling things. Obviously, we see that as a vendor, and I saw that in private equity for our firm whenever we dealt with LPs. In the legal side, you guys are dealing with everyone's data that you're supporting as their firms, and I'm sure they want to know how things are being controlled and secured on the inside, and that's becoming paramount. And Scott, I love the way you talked about being sold on hyper automation overall. When we started Aiden in 2020, or I started at Aiden in 2020, we changed the name. Hyper automation was a new word, and I was throwing it around and using it. And people were like, what's hyper automation? And Gartner had just started putting it in their hype cycle, right, as a term of art. Now I think we've all come to realize hyper automation is really important all over the place. Whether it's RPA or some other kind of advanced automation. And I think people looking for opportunities to do that can really streamline their operational costs, but also bring great value to their organizations. And the talk we just had about the resources that you guys are looking to hire for and what's important, I think that may be important to a lot of people listening to this content today, or in the future, which is, if you're not already doing it, develop your skills on the analytics side, data and integration, and understanding all these automation opportunities and tools. So important for anybody who may be looking for a job. Thank you, Scott and Andrew, so much for a wonderful conversation today. Hopefully we'll get to continue this conversation as we all journey on together, and for making this specific to law firms and not just theory or theoretical conversation about it. And thanks to ILTA for pulling this call together today in this meeting, and allowing Aiden to sponsor. We really appreciate that. If anybody wants to go deeper on how we plug into Intune or Config Manager, or any of the things we talked about today, future automation or AI tools that are coming to our solution or others that we know of, we can certainly follow up and continue the conversation offline. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to you, John. Thanks for hosting today.
Thanks so much. I want to thank Alan and Josh and Andrew and Scott for being our special guests today. In addition, don't forget that ILTA is sponsoring many webinars. Always check in to the document side, the document tab, when you look at the webinars, because anything that we can share, any handouts that we have, are located there as well. Folks, I just leave you with this last thought. You're going to be handling endpoint management. Whether you do it the smart way and the efficient way through tools like Aiden, or whether you do it the old-fashioned way and struggle with it, you still have to handle it at a law firm. Why not pick the more intelligent way to handle it and choose tools like Aiden that can help you with that? On behalf of the International Legal Technology Association, Mary Beth and Laura, I'm John Graves, saying thanks so much for joining us today.